Welcome to Beyond Time Signatures.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm happy that both of y'all are here. I think for Ollie's, I think Prerak, I think you were the only one there, right?
He's the one that mostly takes the guitarist podcasts. Me being a vocalist myself, I joined on Vocalists again.
Oh, right.
So
Cool.
yeah,
Sweet.
yeah, that's the idea.
I just want to ask you, how did you get your, spark for music, and at what age?
Yeah, so I was like, there's home videos of me like getting in front of the TV and like dancing to Backstreet Boys, and I think there's one where I was like just a toddler, like my dad would put on the Three Tenors, which is classical opera, and I would be like just making noise, like getting really excited watching that stuff. And then I think, riding the bus to school, I would be like listening to Usher or like Eminem and just
Okay.
like with my headphones on, just didn't care who was around me. And I'd just be like humming and like singing and stuff. But it wasn't until like, let's say I was probably 12, where my friend who I ended up joining his band in high school, I wasn't like super tight with him at the time, but we went on a school trip and I got to see him play guitar. He had brought his guitar and he was just playing like Green Day and stuff. And I was just like mesmerized. I was like, oh my gosh, like I know that song and you're playing the song
That's
like
all.
in front of me on this instrument. That is the coolest thing in the world. And I immediately after that school trip went home. I was like, Mom, I need to get an acoustic guitar. And then I think like one of the first songs I learned was that 99 Quite Bitter Beings. I think that song is. That riff, da 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 da. I don't know if you guys know that song, but I
I don't
learned
think
that.
I know that song.
I
I'm
learned,
sorry.
I learned that, and then like I ended up just like practicing guitar. I wanted to start a band. I ended up joining his band later when I got good enough, and we formed a group and like played in high school. Started taking voice lessons, um, and yeah, that's pretty much my story.
I see. And then at what point did you realize that, hey, I think I should go to school for this? Probably.
Yeah, well, I like every year in my town, in my high school, and surrounding towns, like my band would practice like in high school, like every 3 days on average, like every 2 days. We did it for fun. We loved it, and we were really tight. I mean, we played kind of like metalcore stuff, and like
Okay.
post-hardcore stuff, but we would like win the Battle of the Bands tournaments nearby. Like some of us got like summer scholarship to Berkeley for winning like competitions
Yo.
like regionally. Um, and so like for the youth program at Berkeley. And then yeah, like I knew that I was like way more interested first off and like just pretty solid compared to everyone else at my high school. And so I auditioned for Berkeley and then I got in and I was like, I think like I should probably do this if I got in. So yeah.
And I think you met Eric and Sam and the other Aviations band members in Berkeley, right?
Right. Right. So for the first year of college, I didn't know them. They lived in a different dorm. It was second semester at the end of the first year of school where they had posted something in the Facebook group for our class, and it was like the best produced metal that anyone had like put out in our class or like recently, and it was just instrumental, and they were looking for a vocalist. And so that summer when I went home after my first year, I just like wrote bits of Outliers, which I don't know if you guys listen to that track, but I
Yes,
wrote
yes.
Dude,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I wrote bits
yeah.
of that. I wrote bits of that and sent it to them, and they were just immediately like, "Holy shit, like, let's do this." So then I met them, after going to school with them and walking by them in the halls like all the time, not talking to them, not knowing who they were. Third semester when I went back in September that year, I met them and we recorded the EP and started making music together, I guess.
Yeah. And were you a screaming guy initially? Because since you mentioned that they produced like a metal track, right? So but I as far as I know, you are more inclined towards cleaner vocals. So
Yep.
was it a thing that you learned for the band initially, or
Well, yeah, like I was always into weird screaming stuff, like grindcore stuff. Like as a child, like as a kid, like just underground like metal and like Bring Me the Horizon's first EP, like I was in love with when I was like 10 years old for some reason. I don't know. Like I was always into it, but I never really did it like correctly. And so in high
Mhm.
school, the guy who I was playing with, I was more inclined and I think just like had the voice to do the clean singing and he was going to do the screaming. So I kind of just
Right.
like it was never really my role. And then I think around like 1920, I was like, oh, there's a lot of bands that, you always have the bands that are doing like, oh, the scream verse, the clean chorus, or vice versa. And I was like, let's just do this clean. And it was kind of unique at the time. I think like when the Aviations EP came out and the Light Years came out like 4 years later or whatever, or 6 years later, I don't know. There weren't many prog bands, like modern prog bands that were just like singing only.
Yep.
But then
You're
on the
right.
most recent album, Lumenaria, there were just spots where like if the song called for it, which it did, that there was no avoiding me screaming. So I kind of just like picked it up and did it. So
And I saw that one of
Dude,
the
that's
videos. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no. I was just saying that's pretty sick. For a clean singer, could you break down some of your influences through the early years as to what got you into cleans entirely?
yeah,
Or
yeah, I mean like super early listening to like Usher and Michael Jackson was cool and just playing like I think I said in a recent interview, like playing the little karaoke hero games, like singing
right,
to those, but like I started taking voice lessons probably at like 13 and I was listening mainly to like Coheed and Cambria. Um
nice.
and I mean like The Fall of Troy, which had like both screams
Yeah,
and
I remember
singing.
that.
Yeah, I'm repping their shirt right now. But they like I think like Johnny Craig was huge for me from Dance Gavin Dance, like the first vocalist.
Hmm.
I like Kurt Travis too, and then Anthony Green was really big for me as well. So
Right.
also even like before that, like Chiodo's, like Craig Owens. So kind of like emo Warped Tour esque stuff early on, but then like kind of got refined to more rock things later.
And I
That's
think
pretty cool, man.
because of your influences, you have a great grasp on melody, and I genuinely doubt that just if somebody listened to just prog, that they would be able to pick up those pop kind of melodies. So like that's great, first of all, and secondly, I saw that one of the videos from the latest EP was directed by Michael Lessard. So I was just wondering whether, growing up, did the Contortionist album Language have an impact on the band as a whole?
Oh yeah, yeah, for Aviations for sure. That's probably like collectively one of our favorite albums. I think it's everyone in that scene,
Yes, yes,
one of their
yes.
top five at least. And so working with Michael was sick for the video because he is a videographer, as well as like a prog god. Yeah. So like his voice, like his influence was probably like one of the last vocalists that I really got like inspired by because of his melody writing too can be extremely simple but also like breathtaking at the same time. Like he could sing like, four notes over like I don't know, 8 bars or however long and it just really like maintain emotion and just remain interesting. And his tones too, like he's not like for my stuff, I was always going ham for a long time, and even in Luminaria, it's the crazy belting stuff. But where we tone things down and get clean is recently what I've really wanted to do, and like listening to Michael Lassard and how he approaches those softer parts in the Contortionist is just like really helped me figure out like okay, I don't need to be like belting or doing anything extravagant like to make an impact. So
Absolutely, and I can draw quite a few parallels between you both, because like you both are like more towards the clean side of singing in prog, and I fail to find band with a sound like that. Like like before
Hmm.
I got into Aviations, Contortionist was the only band, but that's probably because of my limited knowledge. But Contortionist was the only band that I knew that did something similar.
Right. Well, I think we definitely came like after them. They've influenced our sound quite a bit. Like from like their clean guitar tone and how ambient it can be, and like the textures that they add on top of what their song is like unmatched, I think. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Adam, I want you to break down Lumenaria for me. As a lyricist yourself, I think it's one of the most fantastic albums I've heard from 2023. And two songs specifically stood out to me. I mean, that stood out to most people, Safe House and Coma. Can you break down the lyrics on them and
yeah,
deep
sure.
dive further into
I'll
them?
try off the top of my head. So Safe House is kind of like just about kind of breaking out of your shell. There are a bunch of people though that in my life personally kind of influence the lyrics, like people who don't expose themselves to other things, like living in a glass house type thing. Like some minor thing could go wrong, and even my family, there's people like this. Something that, like, in the grand scheme of things doesn't matter. It happens. It goes wrong, and like their reaction is as if someone they love has died. Like oh, I spilt my coffee. Oh my god, it's the end of the world. Like, but how is that, like, how to get deeper into that? It's like, oh, like, you haven't been getting out much. You haven't been going into the world and doing like things that actually really matter. And having that overreaction is like unhealthy. And like, you don't like being too safe and being too content with the things around you can kind of, I guess, just like, kind of just makes you want to like not treat things objectively, I guess. And so like, I don't know. That's more or less what Safe House is about. Coma is kind of tied to Pure in a way where like there's turmoil with, if you've ever like written music with a band and been with a band for a long time, like there's drama in every band, like on some level. Like if anyone tells you there's no drama, then they're lying. Like maybe it's not like on the surface, but maybe like in their brain they might dwell on things and arguments that they've had and debates they've had on music, or what should we do as a, like, should we focus on this thing? Should we focus on this thing to get here to find success? And just the inner workings of how like 6 members like conflict. So Coma is more or less about like inner band turmoil, actually.
Right. It's funny you're telling me this because my band just broke up.
Oh, really?
Just broke up. Yeah.
I mean, it happens all the time. Like that's Coma.
Yeah, dude, I understand that. I've been in 12 bands myself, and my latest band was like quite the successful project from the Middle East. But like you mentioned, turmoil, creative conflict, it all adds up, and we reached a point where we've taken a proper break from music, I guess. So who knows? Probably we'll come back, probably we won't. But yeah, man.
Like a band is like it's like having another girlfriend, like you have to, there's so much emotion involved.
I have this analogy.
I
have this analogy where I feel like being in a band is like being in a startup and a marriage with 6 other dudes.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
Yeah. Because you handle the business, you handle the music, you handle the creative aspect of things. And if there's like a conflict between like even 2 major forces in the band, that's it.
Yeah. And there's definitely, I think, conflict in my band. It arises all the time, but we kind of have somewhat figured out how to work through it. With 6 people, it's just like a different animal altogether. Like, if I could go back in time, I think what would have been smart would be to just delegate tasks. Like, I'm more keen to like handle emails and business stuff and make like decisions in that respect, and having like, maybe 2 people handle that thing is cool. But for like instrumental writing, like that's not my thing. I could attempt to write a song, but I don't think it would accomplish what Aviations wants to be. Like I would be like, hands off. Does that mean I don't get a say in it at all? No, but like, it's not my like main thing. So yeah.
So
I believe
I
there's two
just
ways. Sorry, Prerak. Go ahead.
yeah.
My bad.
So I just wanted to gauge that, like, generally in an aviation's song or an EP, how does it generally go? Is it like, let's say Eric or Sam come up with a, or I think, like, when last year when your guys' EP came out, I asked it on your main account, and I guess the drummer replied saying that he would write some syncopated stuff and like send it over to Eric and Sam, and they would figure the rest of the shit out. So what I wanted to understand was, generally, does it happen that they have an instrumental ready, and then you try to, like, add your vocals to it?
Right. So I first off, I think the main writing I guess process is James is kind of right. Like he'll come up with, because it's so drum heavy and rhythm heavy, our music as well. He will come up with like some riffs and some things in Guitar Pro that he's just hearing in his head, and then he'll send it over to like Richard and Sam and Eric, and then they will make that actually like completely work for their instrument, and they might like spice it up and add some color with the harmony. But I think what has to happen, to answer your question, is if you're going to be writing like a lot of the chord progression and the rhythms and all that stuff, you kind of just have to keep in the back of your head, like, there needs to be some space for the vocals. So James tries to keep that in mind. I think like in older stuff, it wasn't really like a necessity or a thought. It was kind of like an afterthought. And so we'd struggle a bit coming up with melodies. I definitely would. But recently, like, I think he's taken the approach that, like, vocals are really important. Like, it is kind of like bridging the gap between like your regular listener and a musician kind of thing.
Right.
So yeah, just kind of just keeping somewhere in your creative head, like knowing that you need to have space is pretty much how to get a vocalist in Prog. Yeah.
Okay.
Prerak, can I say? I mean, yeah, okay. But that being said, Adam, like being a vocalist myself, I feel like when an instrumental is handed over to me, it hinders my abilities of storytelling. For example, if an instrumental is just plain given to you, and the band is against making changes to the instrumental since it's done, how do you adapt to telling your story lyrically on top of a pattern or an instrumental like that? Because I personally did it for a couple songs myself, but after a certain point, I was like, dude, if I want my story's climax to be at this position, and you're not willing to make a change in the instrumental, how do you expect me to write a brilliant story?
Right.
Is that something you face?
Yeah, definitely. I think like with this music, you kind of are like the second thought kind of thing as a vocalist. Like even if they are, like I said, writing with the mind of, okay, I need to leave some space, like you are still put in a box. You still have to, any like, accents or hits, you need to like, land on, on strong beats, et cetera, whatever. Lyrically though, like the way that I write is I'm not like approaching the microphone with like a poem that I've already written and it goes through all the feelings that I want. And if like they don't mold with this song, like I'll be upset. That doesn't happen to me because I'll write lyrics kind of after I've come up with melodies and the vowel sounds that I want. So like I'll write a song with filler lyrics and then later come back and like, figure out what I want the theme to be and have it fit the music properly. But I still get what you're saying. There are times where like, I want to completely even like delete a section or stuff. Especially recently, I don't think I have much more patience in me to like do like an Outliers or a Coma again. Like I really want to like be more of the focus. Because again, like you have to, as a vocalist in Prog, you are molding around the band as best as you can. So, yeah.
I mean, it changes from band to band because I had a chat with Dan from Tesseract recently when I saw them play live, and I asked him the same question. Dan broke it down to me differently, where he'd come up with the storyline first, and then the instrumental is composed around the storyline, which is very different from the way you explained it or what I've experienced.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm like jealous. I would love to try that because I mean, I think another weird thing with Aviations though is like there are parts in all of our music where Richard, our pianist, will like me and him will be like doing counterpoint. Like there will be like a melody on the piano, and then I'm also singing a melody. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. But like I would want to try to avoid that as much as possible. So yeah, maybe trying that approach, Dan's approach, would be good for me.
It's pretty sick. Does anyone else contribute to the lyrics and the storyline, or is it just you?
Yeah, so Sam, on this last album, there's like parts where like I hit writer's block, like, and could not do anything. And he helped write a good bit of the vocals. Like I think the song La Jolla, which ended up being like one of my most favorites, like he took that song and like just wrote the whole thing vocally. So there's like only a couple of lines where I put my spin on it, and like it was really nice to have someone helping me out with stuff. Like for the light years, he kind of like took the back seat and realizes like, okay, like I want Adam to sell, you know, the vocal parts. The best vocal parts will be the ones that the vocalist writes, the best performance at least. But he did such a good job with like, for example, La Jolla, that like I felt his writing so much that like I could kind of take it and put my own tone on it, and just, yeah. So Sam helped, and with the background vocals too. Like I would usually hear like, okay, I can hear the third here or like the fifth here and sing like a harmony, blah 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 blah. But it wasn't until like we recorded Lumenaria together, like the finals, and wanted to add a bunch of color with backgrounds, that like, you know, I started hearing like extensions and like sevenths, and could just like pull out other notes. And like that was a very like I call it leveling up. I kind of leveled up with him, hearing those things, and like I was able to incorporate a lot of that in Olly's music. So yeah.
That's amazing to hear. As a guitarist myself, who wants to be like Sam, I want to be able to contribute to vocal writing as well, but I don't know how to write good melodies. So what advice would you give me? Like how do I start? What do I practice to get?
You kind of have to just like throw stuff at the wall, like if you like drive or you're sitting around, like you have your microphone set, just like sing, just kind of internalize the instrumental that you wrote, and like know the rhythms, like, as you know, kind of muscle memory, and like just start singing into a microphone and finding little pieces that work and expanding on those, and then deleting bad takes that don't work, and then you put lyrics to it. It's odd though, like this is true with some melodies, I think, in Lumenaria, that like they're pretty intervallic, and you can tell sometimes where like the guitarist had a spin on it, whereas like a vocalist might not do as much jumping or like climbing up and down the scale and stuff, because a voice is, you know, so you don't have as much freedom, you know, as you do on a guitar. You can like jump everywhere and do all this crazy stuff and skip octaves and do all these like insane things on guitar, whereas for a voice, like you do not have that freedom at all. So that's where like people who like are writing melodies and with like a MIDI keyboard, it just doesn't come off as human when you end up trying to sing them.
Right.
So
I think, and also because like, you know, when, let's just say if you're trying to write a proper melody, there will be a note that you would be probably singing for a lot longer than a few other notes. Like I would like to take example of waves. Like it doesn't, like, you know, since you can play 12 notes, like it doesn't mean that you have to play all the notes for the melody. There will probably 2 or 3 notes that, and one of the notes will have like a more it will take the tonal center, if that makes sense, for that melody, and there will be just a few like minor adjustments towards it to make it sound good. So like it probably has to do with, like, you know, accents more, and the way the lyrics align with the rest of the instrumentals, I feel.
Yeah. I mean, like, lyrics, man, are just, they're at the bottom of the list. And I want to change that, but like the thing that like as a listener that you're going to, you know, grab onto the quickest is whatever the melody is.
Exactly.
So like just make the melody really good and then figure out the lyrics later. With screaming, like it's different because it's rhythm. You want to find pretty cool, like gut-wrenching lyrics for those parts. You definitely need to spend a lot of time in that realm. But I don't know, melody, man, just comes first in my head.
It's the reverse for me. Rhythm comes first in my head as a screamer.
Right.
I'm also a clean singer, but like I sing very less clean sections in comparison to my scream sections. So rhythm comes first and then comes melody, which is interesting just to see how different vocalists think.
Yeah, well, I think when I say melody, I definitely mean like note choice and then
Right.
rhythm. Like
Right.
that's what makes the melody. But yeah, with screams, it's all rhythm. So
Yeah.
And
Where do you storytelling? Oh, sorry.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Dude, this is the first time we're doing
Storytelling.
a 3-team podcast.
Yeah.
And I kid you not, this clash is
I think,
And
hey, I think it's better. Like you could be using the raise hand feature or whatever, but there'd be like so many breaks in our chat that
yeah.
I mean we're motor mouthing right now, which I think is good for a podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's fair.
I guess so.
So I think Manav was trying to get towards storytelling, right? So Manav, can you go ahead and finish the question?
Yeah. Adam, I wanted to ask you where your storytelling abilities come from. Have you always been a reader, or have you been influenced by films, culture of any sort?
I think like it's mainly just life experience, like just relationships, mostly influenced.
Emo.
Yeah, just emo, like personal relationships, like in Ollie's stuff, we were both going through like weird things and like had this kind of like synergy, but like separate still, and so he was just resonating with what I was writing and would just like tell me and verbalize that, like, okay, like I like where you're going with this, keep going with that, and it just would end up working. And I think with Lumenaria, there's a song where like I take influence from like my brother and his wife's relationship.
Oh,
At
okay.
the time they were like going to get married and like all the stuff, and they end up having a kid, and like I go through that and how it makes me feel and what my relationship with my brother is, and then what their relationship together is, and with their son. And so like I kind of like wanted to write something about that. For animals on Ollie's stuff, I remember him getting on a Zoom call, and he like plays the song and he like starts like going like this on the video, and I'm like giggling. I'm like, yeah, like this is like a fight, like this is like a UFC like hype song, like I'm about to go to battle. And then it just so happened like a few days later I've been saying this all the time. I watched All Quiet on the Western Front. It's like this World War One movie.
Okay.
And it's about like 17 and 18-year-old kids who are romanticizing going to war, and they're like so amped. They're like, oh yeah, I got in, like I'm gonna go to war. Like they're Germans, and they're like, yeah, I'm gonna go, like push into the French's territory, and like this is so exciting. And they all sign up, and then they get to the battlefield and it's like hell, and they're just like
The
put on.
reality comes.
Yeah, and they're in the trenches, and it's like insane. And I remember watching, like I sometimes doom scroll. I'll watch like things going on in the world. Gen Z has been making memes about how good they are at Call of Duty or at Fortnite, and it'll like show them playing Fortnite and being like, oh yeah, we're the best at Fortnite. But then it shows like a meme of someone like in the back of a helicopter like about to deploy, and they'll be like, yeah, like I've prestige so many times, I'll be great in a war. And it's just like, no dude, like that's not the mindset you want to have. This isn't a joke kind of thing. And that's kind of what Animals is.
I see.
Got it.
Yeah.
And it's a little funny to me that the entire Olly EP was probably shorter than one of the Aviation songs.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think what I assume is like you would have had a totally different fun experience writing shorter songs, right? So like what was different with Olly's stuff, like writing wise and the experience wise, and also like just tell us like how did the project take off initially?
Yeah, so the first, like I guess like as a whole, I think it came more natural to me. There's not like I'm not listening to Prog. I might play Prog and love to do that stuff and push my voice and have like all these colors around me and all these cool things and longer developed ideas. I like that. I don't usually listen to it as much as I used to. But I think like it came more naturally to hear Olly's songs because it was more straightforward, you know, like the song form in general was more straightforward. So I could just go into a song and like I knew kind of what I had to accomplish right away. I didn't have to think about like, okay, the energy level at this section at 2 minutes has to be here so that later at 6.5 minutes I'm like here, like things like that. I could just go. And the way that it started, Werner Erklins, who now plays for Monuments, is in my band, and he was like doing Periphery covers online like years and years and years ago, coming on 10 years now, and we needed a bassist for a tour, and so we like hit him up, and he ended up joining after. Like he flew over. He's from the Netherlands, so he flew over, does the tour with us, and he joined. Then he goes and plays for I Built the Sky, meets Olly, ends up getting into Monuments. But then Olly was looking for a vocalist and posted about it. And Werner was like, yo, hit my guy up. Olly sent me Animals, I think, was the first one. And then I just demoed some stuff. And he's like, okay, you're the guy. Like, keep going on that. But I'm also going to send you this one. And I think it was Waves. And when I heard Waves, I was so psyched because like I was already a fan of Olly's and like I knew the riff. And so when I knew he was going to include that, I was just like, this is going to be awesome. So that's kind of how it worked. And with writing, it was like I would just go and, you know, do my thing, like write lyrics, write melodies, send him demos. We get on Zoom calls and he'd be like, I like this part a lot. Can you write something else for this part? You know, blah, 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 blah. And we just would go through it like that. So,
Yeah. And was it in 2023 or was it prior to that?
So 2023, we mainly did like the video stuff and just him doing a lot of just like administrative, like preparing
Footwork.
for, yeah, just like album artwork, getting podcast stuff together, music video spaces together. Like I would fly to London. I flew to London twice, once to do music videos and once to do like podcasts and then a little bit of music video stuff.
Yeah. I think it was in 2020, early 2024, right? One of the
Yeah,
instances.
but I think like writing, like it was a while. There was a little hiatus with Olly because he was going through some stuff and he was like, I need to step back from music. So that was a few months where we just like took a break and then we got back into it. Yeah, I always mix up the years, man. COVID kind of screwed up my timeline, so I
Yeah,
I don't remember if it was
everybody.
like 20. I want to say 2022 is when we kind of like started talking and working on stuff.
So this album has been in works for a long time.
Yeah,
Like this EP.
yeah,
That's wild.
yeah. But like
But
it's been done since like last year. It's just doing a lot of the other stuff that is
Yeah.
just
yeah,
I mean,
what we
props to Ollie for like, having that much patience to like, just sit on something this cool for 1 year. I mean, I would go mad, honestly. I had to wait for an
Yeah.
episode with Ollie
Yeah,
to come out
same.
for a month and I was losing my head. I was telling this dude, bro, please let me post a snippet, bro. Please let me tease people. But he was like, no, we are not doing that.
Yeah, yeah. He's particular with stuff, which is good. And
Yeah.
I think when he knows he needs to be patient, he's fine being patient. I think deep down.
Yeah, and
All
I
right.
think I adore that from him, and I try to, because like a lot of people, what they do is they take making art too seriously. But I think, in my opinion, making the process of making art should be taken seriously while being goofy and shit, like outside of that, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
think
Yeah.
even in a band setting, that's how you probably can sustain as a band. Like if you are taking the process seriously and like just goofing around, everything outside of that, then it probably. So I assume that's probably the case with Aviations too, right?
I wish it was more like that. I think some of us tend to, just like want to the process to take long, like subconsciously. Like we end up, we'll like have a song that's objectively like done, but then just because we think it deserves more time, we'll like put it under the microscope. And I kind of just want to like remove that mentality altogether, because it's not worth taking the time. Like that little extra 3%, if that
You
delays
lose the
a
momentum.
song, if that completely screws up the process. But if that delays like the release of the song by like 6 months or something, it's not worth it.
Dude, that's a long time.
Yeah.
Adam, how many times has Aviations as a whole written full-fledged songs, microscoped it and deleted it or archived it? Has that ever happened?
Man, I don't think like there's been that much deleting.
Okay, good.
I think some sections it would be nice to remove here and there. I think, but for me, like again, I'm getting the songs kind of like after they've been, sweated on by like James, Sam, etc. And so I don't really know. I can't recall off the top of my head what they usually decide to delete. But yeah, I don't think like it's just been like, let's wipe this song. I don't have to do a lot of the instrumental work. So
yeah,
if there's a writing process soon where something is written, but like it hasn't been like fully recorded yet, I kind of want to be like a pop A&R guy and be like, yeah, cut this from the album. Like it's not the sound, it's not the thing.
Right.
If you want to release that, like, in some other project or do something else with it, that's obviously cool. But
yeah,
I would like to be more particular with the sound and like the song forms going forward.
All right.
Yeah.
I think there's two kinds of people. There's one that chases perfectionism, microscoping every detail of, whatever art they create. And there's the second kind of person, which is the progress person that focuses on progress, drops whatever they can get, learn from their mistakes, and picks on with the next one, and makes the next one better.
Right.
There's only two kinds of people in the entire world.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like that, you described it perfectly. I think we have like both types in the band for sure.
But which one, if you look at the band collectively, which one is it leaning towards more to?
Probably the perfectionist one.
Yeah, I think most prog bands just get caught.
Yeah. I think the nature of the progressive music is like, you are not just under the microscope by your own bandmates, but the entire scene. And especially like, at the stage Aviations is, like, especially after last year. First of all, congratulations for your band getting this much progress and success in the last 1 year. But yeah, I mean, when you're at that stage, I mean, I would like to take an analogy of Tool. Like Danny Carey, he's pushing 65, but he's still very tight. And if he's not tight, like that's his whole brand identity, being tight at music. And so like I don't blame the guys, like, because like the nature of the progressive music scene is such that if you're not at the top of your game, like that's the only, like, for a rock star, their persona is something that, they vibe off to. But for like, being in a prog band, your skills and your technicality and your musicianship is what truly matters.
Right. And I think like when we were writing Lumenaria, and it goes with the music videos, the artwork, like everything, we always look back on Outliers because it was really like the first success that we had. I think that was bigger. And once we put that out, it was kind of just like the ceiling was here, and then Outliers came out, and then it was like up here, and it was like, you can't release anything down here anymore.
Right.
So putting that ceiling like high is definitely makes it, more tough. But like if you get, a thrill or feel accomplished by beating that just for yourself, then that's what you got to do.
Right.
But yeah, I think even with production though, like Prog is, I think, a little too much like under, like it's people get surgical with it, with edits and with all of these things. And like I didn't listen to Dream Theater growing up. Like most of my band or a good bit of my band did. And like the technicality there is different than the weird like math core and things like that I listened to growing up, because I like in what I enjoyed as a kid, it was still punk rock, like the guy on stage would be like really emotional, going super hard, and like it didn't matter if he missed a note like here and there, like he's wearing his heart on his sleeve, and like this is his thing. And I always resonated with that more than like someone who's like stiff, like just nailing everything. Of course you have to play your parts and like do things correctly, but I don't know. I do kind of have more of a punk rock influence, and wouldn't mind, like, I don't know, like doing takes of vocals where like I'm not, pitch correcting them, and like there is not like a bum note that really sounds out, but like something that just is more human.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I
Have
agree with you on
you?
that front.
Yeah.
Mano, go ahead if you want to go to.
Sorry, dude. I'm on a roll because everything you're saying, I'm relating it. I mean, I'm it's like
The
there's like
vocalist
so many
mentality,
relations.
dude.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's like so many things I'm just relating to because I've been through so many of these instances with my band over and over and over again over the last few years that yeah, it's just cool to see someone else talk about the same thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I think we definitely are like, I say afterthought. I don't know a better word to say it, but like we have to mold around our band as best as we can. And
right,
if
yeah,
you do it well, and like, your bandmates are respecting you and stuff, and they'll naturally want to get your opinion more, and kind of like let you, produce a song, or kind of like manage where the direction of a song goes. Um,
right.
so yeah.
That's
And
cool, man. But sorry,
yeah,
Prerak, you can take
so
this one.
what
I'm
I
sorry.
think what you were saying about like the punk rock approach, I think um I would say I'm talking about everything that came after 2015, right? So like I started picking up prog after 2015, and what I see, like, with a lot of people or bands, is that the prog facade of like the whole thing, to be technical just for the sake of technical, like, it reaches like a certain threshold, and then like there's nothing much to it. Like, hey, I know
Yeah.
how to count 7/8. Now what? Does
Yeah,
your riff tell
I
a story?
honestly, like, that's the biggest thing that I hate about prog recently. Like, it's like,
Same.
okay, like you can rip on your instrument, but is this music? Like, is this just like an exercise? Are you, trying to just show off your speed? Or, you can play this drum part and go into this crazy fill and start slamming, but like, does the song make me feel anything? No.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
it's kind of like lost, yeah, objectivity. Like, there's no Prague is, it's kind of like, honestly, it's like I've said this, I can be way more harsher right now, but I think it's somewhat of like a psychosis with social media too, because everyone wants to post impressive stuff for other musicians, and it gets concentrated, and people just lose sight of what makes a good song.
Yep.
Um, so mixing elements of technicality with, the actual feeling of the song, and caring about the song as a whole is where it should go.
Exactly.
um I've pretty much, like, I'm like at my wit's end with like really technical prog stuff, because it's just like a nerd, I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
The
agree. Cause
yeah,
like, am I supposed to be like, impressed by just by the fact that, hey, that's technical, but there's no backstory to it. There's no for so like, I would like to take example of Flinny, right? A lot of the stuff he writes sounds prog, but it's in 4/4, and a lot of the
Mhm.
stuff that's in odd time doesn't sound odd time at all, and it means that, what he's trying to say is not coming from a mathematical standpoint, but from a
Right.
storytelling standpoint, right? And I think like if a lot more people, like, joined that and just drop the facade of like, prog, 'cause like I see a lot of people use selective picking and thumping, but the part doesn't call for it. And
Right.
and that's where I would like to again appreciate you for letting Olly keep the slapping part in Sirens,
Oh
because like
oh,
yeah.
he
so
mentioned
good.
that you were gonna he was gonna scrap that off, but you were like, no, dude, you have to keep that. And it's very nice that you, because the song was calling for it. There had to be like a shift of momentum, or the
Right.
shift of like, like the song was of a certain vibe, and the outro should have been different, because like it's the outro of not just the song but an entire EP, so it had to be memorable to an extent,
Right.
right? So
I think the coolest thing about, like, I guess, thumping technique and slapping is it's, more based in rhythm, and it's textural. Yeah, it's
right,
technical, but like when you just sit back and listen to it, it's just a texture. It's not like they're, visiting all of these notes and like doing all of these crazy melodies and stuff that you have to follow. It's just textural, and like even a Newt playing, like a Newt could have like shedded over that and really just like went in. I mean, Olly was pretty particular with where he wanted like kick and snare and stuff like that. I don't know if Anoop put a big spin on this or whatever, but like what he's playing is like he's playing pretty straight. Like he might have some like interesting choices of where he wants the snare and the kick to be, but yeah, just creating like a vibe as a whole was really cool there. That's like to me a perfect example of like remaining technical but still like contributing to the song and the feeling for a listener.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, and I
But
think that what.
question,
Yeah, go ahead.
dude, I've asked too many questions.
No, you're good. You're good, man. You're good.
I was just saying that from a storytelling perspective, for vocalists, your strong point is your lyrics, right? Any vocalist strong point is the lyrics. Are you the kind of lyricist that likes to tell open-ended stories, leave it to the audience's perception, or do you like your stories being told to the point? What kind of?
So yeah, if I understand correctly, I think like for a long time I wanted the more general lyrics and the open-ended stuff that anyone could listen to, and the words being used aren't as specific. So if you wanted to relate to the song in any way, you're welcome
could,
to.
yeah.
It's possible to. And like if you think of it from like a business perspective, like, oh yeah, that will totally work. Like more people will want to listen to it because more people will be able to identify with it. But now with what I've been listening to recently, like there's this like mathcore or hardcore band that I listen to called Kao Nashi. And the way that he writes his lyrics, you should check them out.
For sure.
All right.
There's like a whole, like he drops names from high school and like goes through very personal things.
Damn.
The front man is he's black and he's gay, and he has the most unique experiences in life, and he is very direct with those and specific. And like I can't relate to him at all, but just because he has so much emotion, and because I'm actually getting chills thinking about it, because he has just such like he just wants to talk about these things, and because he's so open with it and confident with it, and that's his art, I love it. So I think like I've been like taking note from him, and like I've always been wanting to do it. Like Dance Gavin Dance, like their lyrics are crazy at times. Like John Mess's scream parts are like he's all over the place, and like he's funny as hell with his lyrics, and then he's serious and like different as well. And that's kind of like the direction I would like to go. And I've tried doing that a few times, but like again, I'm sending it to a band and they're like, yeah, I don't think this is like they don't personally get it. They don't resonate with it. So it's like, yeah, I get it. It's your music. Like you also have to like the lyrics that I write. But I mean, I write my own music. I'm going to try and like figure that out and do that as much as I can. So.
All right. That's cool.
And just like, I have, because like I'm friends with Joe, right? Joelaul. I wish like, in a universe or like in this life, I can get an Adam X Joe collab. Like that would be huge.
Did
like,
he hit you up? Did he message you telling
no.
you to? Are you sure?
I can show you that, but like no, he did not. But I really wish, like
Yeah, no,
you guys
he's sent me some stuff, so your wish may very well come true. So
because he sent, I think he has sent me what he's probably sent you, but he didn't mention that he was gonna get you, like but he just said vaguely that hey, I might get Adam on this. So like I just wanted to be like
Yeah. So the things that I've been complaining about in Prog, he definitely understands too. Like a lot of times, like the whole technical thing, it's like you play technical music almost for like your self-esteem, like to prove to people that, oh, you're really good at your instrument, and like, slam that like button because I just played this crazy guitar riff that's no one else can play and it's really hard. Is it musical? Maybe not. But like he is definitely, like we've had chats about that, and he he nails it every time. Like he's a deep dude, yeah. So like I would like to work with him on something that maybe his fans might not like, but that is extremely like musical and has like a storytelling aspect to it.
But
So,
hey, wasn't that the exact same case with Olly as well? Because like he told me back early in 2024, like, hey, my new stuff, you might not like it, but it's great. And I think like, yeah, I mean, that's what probably like, you know, the fan base is more towards the heavy riffs and stuff. But this was by far his like, you know, most well-rounded work, and
right.
you are probably one of the major reasons for that as well.
Yeah, I've been like, I check the comments on his videos all the time, and I'm like, I see some that pop up where it's like, ah, the vocals ruin it, and I wish it was instrumental, and I'm just like, okay. But like, I think, 99% of the time people are like, holy shit, like this vocalist did a really good job, and like I'm happy with listening to this. And I think for Ollie it was probably really scary because he is a metalhead. He's much more of a metalhead than me. And, he wants to chug, he wants to play 8 string, he wants to have screams on his music and do breakdowns and be heavy and big and fat. But he also is just like so capable of being delicate and like beautiful at the same time and sweet and all of these things. And I think like he wanted to throw that color into his repertoire. And I think we were a good match for that. And he was just nervous about what his fan base would think, because they know he's like a heavier influence. So yeah.
Prerak? Okay, cool. Coming back to the storytelling aspect of the way you write music at Aviations or elsewhere, I think as a musician, doesn't matter if you're a vocalist or a guitarist, it all boils down to good storytelling. I wanted to mostly ask you about what your greatest accomplishments are in terms of what you believe are the best stories told from you.
I would say the not the intro of Lumenaria, but really what I consider like the opening track is probably lyrically something I want to do. The one that I explained that's about my brother and his wife and his kid. That one was like,
is that Cradle?
Yes, yeah, Cradle.
Right.
Cradle is for like makes like me feel like I'm telling a really good story that I care about. And like when you say storytelling, I'm not thinking about melody here. I think there are some catchy melodies in that song, but like lyrically, that is a really strong song for me and what I've done. I think Outliers, even though it was written like I was like 18, 19 when I was writing it, and I think that song at the time for my age and what I wanted to do, like I think that I'm pretty proud of that. And I think man, Sirens I really enjoy as well. I think like this chat is making me want to like take the approach of writing a poem and then approaching an instrumental rather than doing what I've been doing, which is like jumping in and hearing about rhyming and vowel sounds and like I want to like do more of the Kaonashi, that band's kind of approach. Yeah.
I think it really suits you, dude. You're a fantastic storyteller and a vocalist.
Thank you.
And being able to put two things together, especially from somebody that's got a good knack of how to tell a story. If you have a pre-written story, you can customize the instrumentals around it
right.
to enhance the storytelling perspective. Because like I think of writing music from a film perspective. I'm also a cinematographer and a visual storyteller. But I think of writing music from a film perspective, where your melodies are like your tools, like good high grade camera and like a color grade, a really good color grade, for example. And the crux of a good movie is the script.
Right.
Is the script and the storyboard. Without the storyboard and the script, your film fails.
Right.
So
which are essentially the lyrics. Yeah.
I think more musicians should take this approach of writing down the story first and then wrapping it around with the instrumental. Prerak is a fantastic instrumental storyteller. His first single, 25 hours, for which
he did the artwork.
You should hear it yourself.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Track.
Also, since we
Yeah.
are talking on that front, I just want to like add a few more things that I wrote a new track that's gonna probably come out next month. It's called Warrior Within, and I was very inspired by this anime called Vinland Saga, and the entire
Sick.
yeah. So the second season is it changed me because like it says about like choosing love and empathy over hatred and stuff like that. And the metal scene right now is more about watch the world burn, sadness, misery, Spencer Sotelo, those kind
Yeah,
of
dude.
things. So I
Set me
wanted to
free.
take
Yeah.
yeah exactly.
Yeah, all the
Bro, set
all
me
the
free.
cringe, all the super cringe lyrics that like, you know,
Set Me
Yeah.
Free has been a thing since Avenged Sevenfold dropped their album in
yeah.
2007. Anyways,
Oh,
go.
absolutely.
Help me break these chains. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I'm very much done with that stuff.
Yeah. So I got inspired by that, and I wanted to write a very optimistic song. And how I envisioned it was like at that time I was trying to get better at running. So whenever I felt like giving up, I want to hear the chorus and I want to go all in. So like that was the whole
Right.
idea. It was
Yeah.
very personal, but since it came from a like at the core, it's just like trying to find energy in moments where there's no energy. How that happens is by momentum, and that's what is probably going to be the theme for the next few songs that I release. Is momentum is everything, because like once you do one step and you build up on that and that and that, and it just compounds, and like before you know it, like you are somewhere that you probably did not even think where you were, and stuff like that. And everything else comes second. Technique comes second. And if a vocalist thinks that, hey, this part's like too intricate and I can't sing over that, I'll remove that and stuff like
Yeah.
I have to put my pride and ego aside, because that's what Vinland Saga also talks about, to put your pride and ego aside and taking the path of like more that's harder, but with more courage and like having long-term benefits and etc. And secondly, if I'm collaborating with an artist, like if I'm collaborating with you, I would want your input, not just as vocalist but as a contributor to the song. So like if you think that this part is not fitting or this is not how you want to tell your story, I owe it to you to like change it so that we both are happy with it, right?
Right. Yeah, there are moments where like that happens to me, and it's both ways. I wish I could say like people were more open to changing things for me, but sometimes they like really love a drum fill or a beat that they're playing over this other technical thing. It's like, no, I love that too much, so like you're gonna have to deal with it. Like that happens more so than the other bit. So it is hard, but like, yeah, I would say take that mentality into going to a vocalist, because they will definitely appreciate it. So I definitely like hearing
100%.
that. Yeah.
100%. I wish more guitarists were like you. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to actually like, and that's the podcast name is Beyond Time Signatures. So that's the whole point of this podcast. So like, get people outside of that mentality that, hey, everything is like boxed. Like how ironic, like, we make prog music and we still try to box ourselves to like, certain grid and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think that it should be that way.
Right. And I talk about this with Eric in my band a lot. It's like people say like, oh yeah, prog guitarist could write a 4-chord pop song in 5 minutes. It's probably not going to do. A pop song is extremely hard to write. A really good pop song, that is like writing an Outliers, in my opinion. That's a whole different type of brain that you have to have, and it's extremely difficult. So people who say otherwise like don't really get it. They've kind of lost the point, I think. But yeah, like the other thing is the willingness to remove stuff is very hard to just acquire, like not sitting at your computer and listening to this riff that you love and that you wrote a million times and like adding all of these things to it. Like, again, getting under the microscope, you are going to be so less willing to remove or change that because you've forcefully like fallen in love with it to a point where no one could tell you that it's bad. Like no one can tell you like, hey, it needs to be changed a little bit for me. Like it's that whole, just obsessing over stuff that you've written is something that needs to be thought about with some guitarists, I think, writing for vocalists.
And what I personally feel like two things that can help overcome like people who start is, first, if that that it's not fitting the song, but you are too good to be removed, just post it as an Instagram clip. You'll get your validation that you wanted, as a song. And secondly is that abundance. So for example, if I'm guilty of not having abundance because I just started writing properly since the last but I feel the more I write, the more I'm okay with losing certain things. Because if I write 2 songs and those 2 songs are my whole identity as a musician, of course I'm going to be worried about what comes next. But if if I've written 12 songs, I am past the mentality that a song defines who I am as a person, and I'm willing to make it as a proper song than something that is an identification of who I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Olly definitely shares that idea too, because he wants to do something different every release. And I think more and I think that's just what's natural to him. He's not forcing himself to do something different. He just wants to do it. So it's going to be good because it's natural. But second, your fan base is going to like you because it's you doing it. It's not because, oh, he didn't have a breakdown here, that he didn't have screams on this song. That really upsets me because I'm a heavy metal listener. But it's you just become an Olly Steele listener, or this guy listener, and you just like what he puts out because that's just him as an artist, kind of thing. So when you change your sound a bit and you just let yourself experiment and release other things, your fan base, you're kind of training, I guess, your fan base to be okay with that. So.
And as a musician yourself, with Aviations at least, how much novelty do you crave in the music? Because as prog musicians, I was just saying, but as prog musicians, I agree there's a lot of diversity, but once the band establishes its song, for example, you guys had a very established song around the time you dropped Outliers. And then to top Outliers, you set Outliers as a base and do more over it. So that Outliers base continues on for the next few releases, all through Lumenaria also, for example. But as a lyricist, do you crave novelty to switch away from that and add more?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think it's right to do an album with kind of Outliers copies or coma copies again. And I've voiced that many times. I think the Aviation sound has potential in doing, following sonically and part wise, all the elements that we have of, piano, thick backgrounds, ambient things going on. I think that can get tamed and put into a 3.5-4 minute song.
Absolutely.
And just, and be a really cool rock thing. We have a bunch of extended intros and outros. I'm not keen to keep doing that. I would love a song to just, you press play and boom, we're in a part and I'm singing right away. That's something that I want to do. And if it doesn't happen in Aviations or something else that I'm doing, then I'm going to do it myself. I'm just going to write the instrumental myself because I would love to get to the point and tame that sound. But yeah, I think for Aviations, my job as a vocalist, I think in prog in general is you have all these technical parts, but the vocalist, I might have said it earlier, the vocalist is kind of just the bridge to the normal person that might not be a musician. They might just want to latch on to the melody or the lyrics, and that's where being catchy is important, and developing your melodies tastefully is the way to go for those people. So yeah.
This is the first time I've seen this combination where you have a group, where you have a bunch of prog head instrumentalists and a punk vocalist. They're 2 different mentalities,
Right.
But I love it. This is what we're here for, I guess.
Yeah. I wish I could say I was fully punk, but I mainly just I just want to write catchy stuff and stretch my vocals where I can.
You remind me of the entire Filipino scene over here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just the hardcore, grindcore, catchy stuff. Let's just make music. I don't care what we're making. Let's just fucking do it.
Yeah.
That mentality.
I like that.
All right. Yeah, dude, I'm done with my questions. My list's finished.
Yeah,
I'm good.
Me too. So Adam, first of all, thank you for coming. and it was great. Like you're the actual first vocalist. Like we have had a person here before who is going to be the vocalist for my next single, but he's like a all rounder. I would say he plays everything. But you are the first proper vocalist, and that's what is a growth step for us as well. Because like we just don't want to interview guitar players. We want to get more fresh perspectives, more people outside of the guitar community. And thanks to Manav for saying that, hey, we need to get Adam. I've talked with him, and thank you for coming and chatting with us. Is there anything that you would like to say in general?
I guess like be open. That's my thing. I think that's where a lot of this conversation went, is just as writer, as a listener, just, be open to what someone is putting out there, be open to deleting things that don't work for someone. Yeah, I don't have that much to say as a wrap up, but yeah, I appreciate you guys and thank you guys for the time on here.
Thank you for everything, from your music and aviations to everything else you do.
Thank you.
Most people don't realize it, but people listen to metal because it saves lives. Yeah. Cheers, dude.